Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brantley Hawkins with New Dimensions Wellness Club. Today I'm with Dana and she's our head wellness director. Before you get training with us, there's a couple of fundamentals that you need to be aware of. So we're going to take you through that today. First thing I'm going to talk with you about is finding your neutral position. So I'm going to have Dana, our lovely model here, stand right here in the front. First thing she's going to do with her feet is get them about waist to shoulder width, and this is going to be her railroad tracks. All right, so those feet are facing forward. Then from there, she's going to take her hips and roll those hips up underneath her just a bit, and I'm going to have you face me. Yes, so we can see this from that side angle. And she's going to have this low belly pulled into her spine. She's going to have her pelvic floor activated. And the pelvic floor, those are your Kegel muscles, your hold your pee muscles. And then she's going to lift her rib cage up a bit just to decompress her ribs away from her hips. All right. From there, her shoulder blades are going to just ever so slightly squeeze together. So I don't want you to really bring it all the way back, just a bit here. And then her head right here is going to be nice and tall. So like she's reaching with the back of her neck and her head all the way up toward the ceiling. So what you should be able to see here is a few points. Her ear, her shoulder, her hip, and her ankle are all pretty much in line. And that's a great balance point for us to be in. So when she's here, now her spine is decompressed. Her muscles and slings, which we're going to get into in a minute, are nice and loaded and ready to move. And so this is an optimal position to be in. All right, so what I want you guys to do now is understand, once we're in this position, how do we breathe? Extremely important to make sure we can breathe well through all of our movements. We have a zone 1 in the body, we have a zone 2, and we have a zone 3. So we'll face back forward here. She's trying not to be too stiff with it, but it is a tough position to get into, especially in the beginning, because your body wants to go back into that neutral position. So this is really going to help us out with our posture. But with that breathing, first thing she's going to do here is just completely relax. So this is our easy breathing, when we just want to relax. And we're going to breathe into the low belly here. So what I like to do is take my hand, put it in between my pubic bone and my belly button right here. Yep, you can do that. And you can just do the whole palm. And she's going to breathe into that hand and then exhale on back out. So you'll see the stomach come forward as you breathe in, and then exhale back out. Very relaxing breathing. This gets you into your rest and recovery state. Now, when we're exercising, this isn't where we breathe from. We breathe more in the diaphragm, because we're going to support down here, get back into that good postural position, our neutral spine position. And now you can go ahead and relax that hand. And she's going to take some deep breaths, expanding her rib cage, good, and then exhaling back out. Now, when you expand the rib cage, I want you to think of it expanding in all directions here. So we're getting nice and tall, really reaching up to be able to decompress and then exhale back out. So this is our diaphragmatic breathing. So she's bracing here, breathing here. And this is more getting into your exercise, almost your fight or flight. Not completely up here into your throat, which is your real fight or flight. And that's where most of us tend to breathe from, is up into the neck. We call it some coat hanger breathing. And this raises your cortisol levels, makes you stressed out a bit more, and allows you to never be able to truly relax. So now that you understand how to breathe, let's understand how the body moves. So Dana's still in her neutral position here. And what I want you to do, Dana, take your feet, and I just want you to put pressure on the inside of your feet, rolling them in. All right? And then roll back out with the feet. So as you're doing this, I want you to go ahead and stand up too. Put that pressure on the inside of the feet and the outside of the feet. So you're just going back and forth. And as you roll in, you'll notice your knees dive in. Even your hips start to roll in. Then as you roll your feet out, your knees go out and your hips start to open. All right, come back to that center spot, finding those 3 points of contact in the foot. And those 3 points are the inside ball of the foot, the outside ball of the foot, and the heel. The inside ball of the foot and the heel are your 2 main points that I really want you to focus on, where 40% and 40% of the weight are on there, then only 20 on that outside. So 40 on the inside, 40 on that back heel, and then 20% on that outside. All right, now here's how our hips move. So let's turn and face me again, Dana. And what I'm going to have you do is just poke your butt back. All right, so it goes back, and then now stand back up, roll your hips up underneath you. There you go. We've got a posterior tilt. So those are your 2 positions. So if we just go back and forth here, go anterior, yep, and then posterior. Now see if you can do that almost without the upper body moving too much. Good, yep, back and forth. So being able to get in and out of this position is crucial. A number of people are stuck here. into this position, which jams their low back. And then if you try to squat, you try to lunge, you try to exercise, we're going to get a lot of jamming into this area. So by finding that neutral position of those hips coming underneath you and bracing, then decompressing, now we've created space into this area, and this is how we want to move. All right, now let's face back toward the camera again. And what I'm going to have you do is drive those hips side to side, back and forth. So I encourage you guys, as you're watching this, do this as well. Feel what we're talking about here. Now this is also how the hips are able to move from side to side, back and forth. All right, and then another one, our rotation. So let's go back to center and think of your belly button as a flashlight. Flash it to the left of the room and then back to the right. All right, so as you're moving in and out here, and you notice she still has those 3 points of contact in her foot, and you might notice as you rotate to that outside, go all the way to that left, your big toe on the left side might want to come up. Press that thing down because you want to maintain those 3 points. All right, and you might feel that you feel more of a stretch into that back left leg. So that's how our hips move. The next major mover of the body is the rib cage or our thoracic spine, T-spine. Its primary thing to do is rotate. Very, very crucial in any type of movement, running, throwing, and exercising. So let's get just a couple of rotations up with that upper body. So we're going to keep those hips pretty much squared right now. Very good. And you see as she's rotating back and forth, that's excellent. We can even start to add the arms in there as well as we reach. And that's all extra, but she's moving from the inside of her body out versus just making the arms go back and forth. And go ahead and relax. And what we've noticed is when your upper body is not moving while you're walking, then it begins to stabilize and become stiff. And then the lower body starts to create some sort of heel whip or a knee dive in. So it's vital that when you're exercising and you're moving, which we'll get into in a second, of being able to rotate that upper body back and forth, just like we do when we're walking, or we should be doing. All right? So next thing, I'm going to talk to you about the lines within the body. So the myofascial lines, Anatomy Trains is a great resource to take a look at. I'm not going to dive too deep into those lines at all, but let you understand that they're muscles that connect within the body. So when we do certain movements, we want to make sure that they all elongate together and then contract back together. All right? I'm going to have you go ahead and turn around, face this back spot here, D. So from the bottom of her foot all the way up her Achilles, her calf, her hamstrings, going across the glutes, low back, and ending in the head. You've got a line in the back. Then you've also got a line in the front, 180. You've got a line in the front going all the way up the front of the body. You've got a line in the side of the body that comes on down on each side. You also have our core line. And the core goes from the inside arch all the way up your adductors into the pelvic floor. Up the pelvic floor, it goes into the front of the spine, goes all the way up the spine and ends in the throat and tongue. All right, and you can really feel your core line by putting a little weight on the inside ball of the foot and the heel. As you do that, you'll feel those adductors activate a bit more. We also have our X pattern lines, which is where it comes up on the left leg, crosses over the body here, and heads on out to the right shoulder. Same on the opposite side. And then turn on around again. We've got another one on the back side where it comes up this left leg, crosses over the glute, thoracolumbar fascia, into the latissimus, all the way up the right shoulder. So if you think about someone walking, as they take a step, well, all these muscles are elongated and then they contract together. Running is almost a better example because now you're really using those lines back and forth. Then the last line we'll talk about today, have you switch on back around, is our sling line. And that's really where we're talking about our adductor now coming across to our oblique. So for movements like this, think of a baseball pitcher. He's going to open up here and then sling coming across. And so that goes from that adductor, it actually wraps around the body, and it really helps us create these rotational movements. All right, so that's the connections within the body. So now we're going to take you into how we can move or how we should be moving. Our main movements, we're going to start with a lunge. So what I'm going to have Dana do here, she's going to find her good neutral position. She's going to be on her railroad tracks. We might even take those feet just a bit wider apart. And she's going to take a step with her right foot. You got to know which one you're going to dump into. And she's going to sink down into a bit of a lunge position here. And you'll notice how she immediately begins to rotate with this upper body. Perfect. And then come on back up out of that. Now, as we do our lunge, what we really focus on, and I'm going to have you turn and face away from me here. her right knee, her left knee is about where the inside of her right foot is going to be. So as she goes down into a lunge, we can probably take a little bit more space. And that's about the length of a natural step for her. And then come on back up. So some people like to go way out into that big lunge here. We really keep it short and tight, and this allows the glute to stay engaged, allows our hips to stay nice and engaged, and then really decompresses the spine so that way we're not putting a lot of pressure onto that low back. So pop on back up out of that again. Good, and then step on back out. So that's our lunge position. All right, now we're also going to take you into a hinge. So when we do a hinge, instead of bending from the knee like Dana was just doing there, we're going to hinge at the waist. So this knee, I like to say it's soft. I don't want to keep it locked out. I want to have the slightest little bend into it, and you're going to get into our hinge position, D. Just one, that's fine. We'll stay on this unilateral stance. Yep, going back. So this, now she's really loading her hamstrings here. You can see her chest is out over top of the toes, and she even has some good rotation into the upper body. So her right arm's back, this T-spine rotates just a bit, and now this left arm is forward. And what she's gonna do to stand herself up, as opposed to picking herself up from the chest or the back here, she's gonna drive her hips forward. So come on back up. Good, then we're gonna go back into that position again. So big stretch in the back of the legs, then she's gonna drive her hips back forward, in and out. And this is our hinge position. So we're showing you all this from a unilateral stance where we step forward and come on back. A lot of the times, to be able to feel this in the beginning, we do recommend doing it in this bilateral stance where your feet are together. So we'll show that too for this hinge. And you just go straight back. Many of you, if you've been in traditional lifting before, this is very similar to an RDL. You're reaching straight down and then coming right back up. All right, and let's go back into that hinge position again, into that unilateral stance. So go ahead and drop that foot back. Perfect. So you can see here, same thing, but now we add in the rotation of the upper body, which becomes much more functional and is going to decompress the joints versus keeping us in this very stagnant position. All right, come on back up. Then the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the push-pull. All right, so let's go ahead and face the camera again. And just like we did in the beginning where we reached one arm forward and pulled the other arm back, have you go ahead and do that for a second. Good, so you'll notice we always want to reciprocate. So if we push something, as you go here, you want to pull the other arm back, almost like a bow and arrow, getting nice and long. Then we'll go ahead and switch. So one side pushes, the other side pulls, all right? And this is how we get into our positions versus if you were just in a bench press and you're pressing forward or even just a single arm. Because the body works with these reciprocations to balance itself. And your body is the strongest when it's balanced. So if it becomes in imbalance, well, we're in trouble. That can create all sorts of aches and pains, dysfunctions. So we want to make sure we're getting rid of that. Every part of the body, every muscle has something to do at all times when it comes to movement, especially athletic and performance movements. Now let's get into some rhythm and timing. Now that you understand the fundamentals and what we're trying to do, I want you to understand the rhythm and timing aspect of this. That's the most important thing when it comes to movement. We want to make sure that things can move well and they can move nice and smoothly. So let's start out by getting into that lunge position, and I'm going to have you turn and let's face the window here. We'll do left foot forward. We're going to take that left arm and go down into our lunge and then just come back up. Now I'm just going to have you do a few reps nice and smooth. And what you'll notice here, she's going down into this lunge position and she's not muscling it. She's allowing herself to swing back and forth like a pendulum. And this is very important, just to have this rhythm and timing in the body. She's pushing the ground away from her. She's driving her hips forward. She's rotating her upper body back and forth. All right, and this is our swinging motion that we want to find in our training. Now let's take that right into a hinge. Same thing with our hinge motion here. Rhythm and timing, back and forth. So as we add a weight into her hand and she's swinging in and out of this position, she's able to find this nice rhythmical motion. It feels excellent on the body, and it's a way to stretch and elongate our muscles, bringing hydration, blood flow, and nutrients into them while we're getting some good strength work to tone up the body and increase our performance. All right, and then now let's go into our push-pull. All right, and if she was just to reach and then come right back. So if we had a band, let's pretend that there's a band on your right arm. All right, and I just want you to press, then come back. Press and come back. Good, and she's just finding the same rhythmical motion. So one of our trainers here had spoke before and said, really it's a continuous rep versus going a strict 1, then coming back down. All right, so things are constantly moving back and forth, has this reciprocating and rhythmical motion. All right, and go ahead and relax. And as you're doing this, let me add in one more thing. It's very important to think about your scapula muscles or your shoulder blade. So go ahead and push that arm back out, that left arm. Yeah. And what she's doing here, she's taking her shoulder blade and allowing that to drive away from her spine. Then as she pulls in, she's not thinking of the arm or the shoulder pulling in, but the scapula and the shoulder blade. So go ahead and pull that arm in. She's pulling that shoulder blade down and into her spine. So this is really where shoulder movement originates. So we want to make sure that this shoulder is not left out on an island by itself and that this scapula, the shoulder blade, is really moving well. So that's something that we'll start to get into a bit more in understanding our arm lines and how they rotate. But for this level right now in our fundamentals, just being aware of strengthening and pulling from back here be crucial. All right, go ahead and square you back up. So now we can face on forward. You did a great job. You crushed this.
Really still.
So you understand how to find our neutral position, our 3 points of contact, how to activate our pelvic floor, get us into our neutral position. Because as we move away from these positions and come back, we want to find that position again to decompress. You understand how to breathe. You understand how the body moves. You understand the lines of how things connect together. You understand how to lunge, hinge, how to push, how to pull, and how to get some rhythm and timing. So now you understand the good fundamentals of our training, and you'll be ready to come in for your first session. If you haven't, or you've already done your first session, continue to go over this and start to apply what you've learned. But thank you so much, guys, for checking in. My name, again, is Brantley Hawkins with New Dimensions Wellness. Until next time.